I'm Sam. I'm the owner of the Copper Elm, and today I'm painting cabinets. I've recently bought a travel trailer and it was a little bit outdated, a little bit dark and dingy, and really, really small. So the first thing I knew I was going to do was paint these dark cabinets. They're just cheap laminate, they're not so pretty, and they were really making the room look really tiny. So I knew I wanted to paint them white, brighten up the whole space. And today I'm going to show you my full step-by-step on how I prep the cabinets for paint. Now, I am a firm believer that the more time you spend on prep work, the less time you're going to be spending painting your cabinets, and the better they're going to look in the long run. Plus, they're going to last much longer. Your paint is going to stick, and you're not going to worry about chips and scratches down the road. This is something that a lot of people like to skip on. It's not a fun stage of painting. Nobody likes to clean. Sanding's not that gratifying. So a lot of people like to just skip over this part, and it's going to come back to bite you. All right, we're going to jump right in with our prep work, starting with our hardware. Before you even start the cleaning process, I highly recommend taking all the hardware off so it's out of the way. And if you're going to be reusing your hinges and knobs, make sure you label them so you know which doors they go to. Once all the hardware is off, you can go ahead and start cleaning. For these doors, I chose Whip It, but you can use any degreaser or deglosser you like. This cleaner is super strong, but it's plant-based and eco-friendly, so it's not going to burn my nose like some of the other cleaners. I'll put a link down below if you guys want to check it out. For the cleaning process, I just spray my product on and then give it a really good scrub. If your cabinets are brand new, you can totally just use a washcloth, but I love these green scrubbies, or even grab a scrub brush to really get into all the little crevices. You can also use a metal pick to get into the crevices and really get out any grease and grime that's been pushed in the corners. Once you're confident that your surface is super clean, I clean one more time with fresh water. This is going to remove any leftover cleaning residue that could cause adhesion issues down the road. Once your cabinet doors are all nice and clean, it's time to sand. I'm using 120 grit sanding paper, but you can use a sponge or any medium grit you'd like. The goal of this step is simply to scuff up the doors. We're not trying to sand down to raw wood. We're just trying to give it a little bit of tooth so that your primer has something to stick to. Now, if you're prepping real wood cabinet doors, you want to make sure you're sanding with the grain. If you're doing laminate or plastic like mine, it's not quite as important. You want to make sure that you give a little extra attention to any edges, corners. Think of anything that might get dinged when it's actually hanging in your kitchen. Once you're happy with your sanding, go ahead and clean it off with fresh water to remove all your sanding dust. Let your cabinets completely dry and then grab your primer. I'm using YSL primer in the color white and a 1.5 inch micro angled brush. When I prime and paint cabinets, I prefer to start in the corners. That way I can get rid of any excess that's built up. I follow the grain and try to do nice long strokes from the top to the bottom. And I don't aim for full coverage. I like to do multiple thinner coats as opposed to one thick coat. This is going to allow your primer to adhere to your surface by having thin coats that start the curing process a little faster. Once I've got my center panel finished, I can go ahead and start doing the trim. Keep an eye out for drips because primer's pretty tough, so they're going to be a little harder to sand off. Another trick that helps me is starting on the back side of the cabinet doors. First off, it's going to be a nice place for you to warm up. If you mess up, it's on an area that's really not going to be seen by anybody but you. And by the time you get to the front, you're going to feel like a pro and be way more comfortable. Another reason to start on the back side is because you're going to eventually flip these over to paint the other side. And although you're going to give it plenty of time to dry, there's always a chance that whatever you set your cabinet door on could damage your paint. And I would much rather do repairs on the back side of my cabinet door than the front. I let my primer dry at least 4 to 6 hours between coats, much longer if I'm painting on a slick surface like these laminate doors. So if you're worried about adhesion, let the cabinets dry for about 24 hours before you jump in with your second coat. Once your first coat is completely dry, you can go ahead and start a second coat. I always recommend doing 2 coats with YSL primer because it's really going to lock in all your stains and give it the best chance for adhesion. Plus, the coverage will be better, which means painting will be easier. If you notice any bumps or ridges, you can totally sand before you do your second coat, and you can sand again after your second coat. It's important to take a good look at your primer, but I also like to run my hands across it because your fingers will feel little bumps and inconsistencies way more than your eye can catch. Once you've got 2 even, smooth coats of primer and they're fully dry, you're ready to jump into painting. Just be sure to take your time with prep work, do all the steps in the proper order, give your primer extra time to dry, and the painting process will be a million times easier.